with Kel'el Ware, perhaps the best player in the transfer portal, visiting Bloomington on Thursday and Friday. Business has really picked up for the Hoosiers.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Hoosiers, your one and only daily one-stop shop for everything IU athletics. We have a packed show today, so I don't have much time to stumble over the intro. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. We said the name at the top. It's the big name around IU basketball right now. Seemingly out of nowhere, Kel'el Ware is visiting Indiana. He started his visit on Thursday, continuing it into Friday. Boy, when you look at the transfer rankings and whatever ones you choose to look at, I think in general, kind of the transfer portal rankings are pretty subjective because there's a lot of different players. It's really hard to compare Kel'el Ware to someone like Hunter Dickinson. Dickinson is, I don't want to say a finished product, but a much, much more known commodity than a player like Ware is, who is a younger player, still a bit more of a prospect and a lot more potential there. But still, consensus is he is one of the very, very top names at the top of the portal rankings, perhaps the best player in the portal. And he is on campus in Bloomington right now. Yazir Roseman is the one heading up this recruitment. He is a former assistant at Oregon. I don't know if that specifically is kind of what led to that connection. Makes it pretty easy to make a connection when you have someone that has played up there in Oregon or been up there in Oregon. Very interestingly, before we dive a little bit more into Kel'el Ware, this came from Peegs and Jeff Rabjohns. Obviously, IU players are recruiting these guys when they're on campus for a visit. Ware is not the only one on campus right now. We'll talk more a little bit later. Chris Ledlum from Harvard also on campus right now. But obviously, these players are recruiting them. Trey Galloway among those that are recruiting. But a very interesting name. And you can't help but smile. Jalen Hood-Schifino is still actively recruiting guys to come to Bloomington. Ware among them? Jalen Hood-Schifino he's in the NBA draft. He is gone. He won't be here next season. His time in Bloomington is effectively done. I think it says a lot about the connection he made with this program, the type of person Jalen Hood-Schifino is, that he is still actively recruiting guys like Ware, guys in the transfer portal to come to Bloomington. So if you didn't already love the kid enough, I don't know how much more room you had to love him after what he did to Purdue twice this year. But man, he is actively recruiting guys to come to Bloomington after he is done and gone. Hats off to Jalen. But let's talk about Ware. Spent one season at Oregon. He was a top 10 player in the 2022 high school class. I don't think the Hoosiers were all that involved with him in that class. Obviously, it was a little bit of a weird one, and with Woodson still trying to get his footing, and there wasn't a whole lot of openings and things. But I don't think Ware was someone that the Hoosiers were too heavily after. But nonetheless, they're here now, and that's what matters. 247 Sports had a kind of a recruitment and assessment, a scouting report. That was the phrase I was looking for, on Ware. Quote, Ware oozes with natural talent and elite upside, has vastly improved from his time last year to his senior summer this year. He's great size and length, plus some complementing skill, as he has shown great hands with nice touch out to the arc. Fluid for a player his size, and runs the floor with a smooth gait. Ware is a long way behind from being a finished product, but has the raw tools, potential, and touch to be a serious problem on both ends of the floor. His production will increase once he understands the importance of keeping his motor running in high gear and gains comfort and playing through physicality. That last part, playing through physicality, he's going to learn one way or the other how to do that in the Big Ten if he were to come to Bloomington. You can watch Ware, who he's listed at 7 foot, but also listed at 210 pounds. So that gives you a sense of the type of player he is just in terms of physically. Trace was a very well-built player that could hang in the post. Ware is a lot more like a twig, if we're being honest. But, man, you can watch him and see where all this potential comes from. You don't have to watch him much. He looks like a modern big man, or I don't even want to say big man, a modern forward or center. He is athletic. He can play out on the perimeter. He can shoot 3-pointers. If you want to look statistically at what he did last year, 6.6 points per game, 4.1 rebounds in 15.8 minutes. He played 35 games, but he only started 4 of them. He shot 45% from the field. He was 27.3% from the 3-point line. So 1.6 threes attempted per game. It was 55 threes over 35 games, only made 15 of them. You're very much getting someone that is still a work in progress, but also someone, as that report said, elite upside. If you can put the pieces together, you have a game-changing type player. And it's not like he didn't show anything. I know some of those statistics looked harsh. He had moments. Against UConn, obviously UConn won the title. They had plenty of size in the post. He played in the Nike Hoop Summit against them, 18 points, 9 rebounds, 6 of 8 from the field, knocked down 2 of his 15 3-pointers in that game. So there were moments, there were flashes, and you bring him into your program hoping that you can be the one to put together those flashes more and more. He's strong defensively. He can block shots. He averaged 1.3 per game in 15.8 minutes. So per 40 minutes, you're looking at 3 blocks per game. He can protect the rim. He can use his size, his wingspan in that regard. You're getting someone with a ton of potential offensively, and you're hoping that you can be the coach, be the program that can put things together and help him blossom into a star. He has star potential. So getting him on campus is huge. If IU wants to play more of this 5-out style, this is the type of guy you bring in. He can play more as a power forward. You can play him next to a Malik Renew, next to a Caden Shedrick, whoever it might be. You can bring him in and still bring in another center. Peyton Sparks, you can play him alongside to him as well. So this is big. This is just to get him on campus is big. You hope that you can kind of secure his commitment. I don't think it's coming right away, but getting him on campus is a really big win for the Hoosiers. And now you get the players and the coaches and Mike Woodson to try to sell him on coming to Bloomington. This would be a really important recruit transfer target to get. So we'll keep our eye out on that one for sure. But IU has been they have been anything but slow in the transfer portal. And there's another name that we haven't talked about, Dalton Knecht, who is another sought after player in the portal. The Hoosiers had a Zoom meeting with him. We'll talk about how that went and what type of player Knecht is, how important it might be to land him this upcoming season. Before we do that, let's talk about today's sponsor, FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Safe, secure, super easy to use. Don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Big thanks to you guys for making us your first listen every single day. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. Whether you typically watch us there or not, head on over, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the time we hit the summer. We're closing in. We're closing in rapidly. Transfer portal has been kind to us in that regard. The transfer portal has been a crazy busy one for the Hoosiers, and Dalton Knecht is the latest player they are targeting. Those of you that have been following the portal probably know the name, but Knecht is a wing guard. There's a lot of designations you can put on him, but a player out of Northern Colorado. Now, don't let that put you off, because he had one hell of a season at Northern Colorado. Spent his first 2 years at Northeastern Junior College and then transferred to Northern Colorado, where last season in 32 games, he started every one of them. He averaged 20.2 points, 7.2 rebounds, shot 47.9% from the field, and 38.1% from three on 6.3 attempts per game. The big thing with him, and the reason that there's kind of so many weird designations on his position, is he's a 6'6". He's listed at 6'6". He's listed as a guard, but he has the size of a forward. And so his usage percentage at 28.2% shows you how much the ball was in his hands. That's numbers akin to Trace Jackson-Davis, probably more even than Fino, Jalen Hood-Schifino that we talked about earlier. But he is a playmaker, 11.5% assist percentage. He can knock down threes. He's someone that when the ball's in his hands, good things happen. So the Hoosiers had a Zoom meeting scheduled with him. It took place on Thursday. No word necessarily on how that went, but getting a Zoom meeting typically has meant good things for the Hoosiers. Knecht is, if you want some more kind of deeper dive stats, Synergy had him at 0.91 points per possession on pick and rolls. That's the 80th percentile, but that took up 23% of his possessions. If that's kind of the way the Hoosiers want to move in terms of ball screens and playing in space, that speaks well. Having a player on the wing that's capable of doing that is big. 1.25 points per possession on spot up. That is the one that should stick out to you. That is the 95th percentile. That accounted for 19% of his possessions. So spot up isn't even just specifically catch and shoot. It's if you're in a spot up situation and you attack the closeout, how many points per possession come off that? Things like that. So he can shoot the three ball well. We mentioned it, 38% last season, 36% his first season at Northern Colorado. So a reliable 3-point shooter, but he can also make the right play when teams close out hard on him or things like that in those spot up possessions. And then in the ISO, 0.95 points per possession, 75th percentile. So he can break his defender down, get to the rim. Look, we spent a lot of time talking about what type of offense IU should be looking to run next season. And it was get ball handlers, get athletes, players that can make plays on the perimeter. This is it. This is what you get. I pulled up his stats on Evan Mia, which is a site we've been referencing a lot, specifically for his position and his role. His position is listed as a 4, and I raised some questions about that. My guess would be Northern Colorado, having shockingly not watched any of their games, probably played a lot of guards and played a system where the court was spread out a lot. And just because he was the tallest among them that he's listed as a 4, you can watch him. He doesn't play as a 4. He's not playing as a Race Thompson or something like that. He's playing as a guy that is 6'6" and can spread the floor out. He's quick. He's athletic. He can get to the rim and finish. He can knock down shots. I don't put much into that position. One thing we haven't talked a lot about is the role that they have, which has a similar 1 through 5 designation, where if you're a 1, you're a creator. Your most point guards are going to be 1s, whereas if you're a 5, you are a finisher. You're a center that gets dump off passes and finishes. Last season, Xavier Johnson was a 1. Jalen Hood-Schifino was a 2, was a 2.9. So someone that could create but also finish. Trace was a 1. He was a creator. So that gives you a sense of Xavier Johnson's listed as a 1, whereas Trey Galloway is a 3.5. He could finish, or he could create, but he was typically finishing possessions as a spot up shooter, things like that. Knecht is listed as a 2. So that means he is much closer to creator than receiver or finisher. And that gives you a sense. These are the types of guys Indiana needs to be targeting. Now, Knecht is being targeted by a lot of places, but these are the types of guys that you should be trying to get. So it makes sense Indiana is. He would step in right away. He would give Indiana size on the perimeter. He would give the Hoosiers scoring and shooting that they haven't had. So this is a big player to target. And the scouting report on him from Trevor Andershock at 247 Sports. Knecht is a versatile offensive player from Northern Colorado. Tall wing that makes plenty of threes. Shot 65.8% around the rim, which is very good. The fourth-year player made 42% of his two-pointers away from the basket. It's not great efficiency, but it's much better than average in that range. Defensive end is the biggest question mark for Knecht. He was a below-average defender at Northern Colorado, and the Big Ten would be a major step up. That's the one part I didn't mention. He was just not a good defender for them last season. One of the worst defenders. Yeah, it's going to have to be a step up, but at some point, Indiana is going to have to sacrifice some of the defense they have or have had for offense. They've had really good defenses, but it's come at the cost a lot of times of having anything offensively. I think there needs to be a little bit more of a push and pull there. Get a little bit better offensively, maybe get a little bit worse defensively. Indiana still has players that can be good defenders, and Knecht has the size and the athleticism to be a good defender, and maybe you can help him become one, but that's the knock on him defensively is it's going to be a struggle probably for him to make that jump. But versatility offensively is the biggest thing that sticks out to me. He can do a little bit of everything. IU needs that. That's how you build kind of modern offenses, is getting these types of players with size that can do lots of things and hurt you in a number of ways. So another really big name for the Hoosiers. We'll see if he schedules an on-campus visit as well. Let's finish up with a couple more odds and ends things. Another on-campus visit, Chris Ledlum we mentioned. Also a player IU was targeting, committed elsewhere. We'll get you caught up on that as well. Chris Ledlum has been the name maybe we've mentioned most on this podcast, a name that I think IU fans have heard plenty about, the forward from Harvard. He's on campus as we speak. I think the Hoosiers are one of the top teams for him. He is someone that they've gone hard after. Everything has indicated he's very interested in them and that they see him as a top priority. Indiana's made him a top priority, and that resonates with kids. we've talked a lot about his play style. He is more of a 4 than someone like he's kind of the in-between between Knecht and Ware, the two guys we've talked about. He has the ability to play on the perimeter, but he's a little bit more of a post player. And so he's very intriguing in that regard. He very much is someone that if IU wants to play with more spacing, he can do that, and he can play out on the perimeter, but he can also get to the rim. Maybe bully, I guess is probably the right word, smaller defenders if there are switches. We'll see how much IU runs pick and rolls this upcoming season. Depending on the personnel, it could make a lot of sense. And Ledlum is the type of guy where if defenses switch, he can take them into the post and exploit that mismatch. So Ledlum has remained a priority for the Hoosiers. We'll see how the visit goes. And it doesn't seem to be really any timeline right now about whether he'll commit or when he'll commit. But Ledlum is someone we've spoke about how important he is for the Hoosiers. Jamison Battle, the other player that we have to talk about, he seemed like someone the Hoosiers were high on, or that I guess the other way around, Battle was high on the Hoosiers, at least early on, but the lack of news around him was foreshadowing or telling, because he committed to Ohio State, stays in the Big Ten, but it's not with the Hoosiers. He goes to the Buckeyes. IU moving in on Knecht might have had something to do with this. I think both of them are kind of a wing player, a 3, maybe a 4. Now, I'm not saying that they needed one or the other, and maybe that them going after Knecht maybe didn't foreshadow that. But I do think that Battle would have been good, but it's not an end-all be-all in that regard. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow, on Monday, to recap some of these visits, see what the latest news in the portal is. It's changing daily. For your second listen, make sure you guys check out Locked On College Basketball. This madness is going on everywhere across the Big Ten, college basketball. This transfer portal madness, not limited to just the Big Ten. So make sure you guys check them out, catch up the latest. They also gave a way too early top 10 on their last episode. Go give them a listen, see if you agree or disagree. Follow us on Twitter if you have not already. Make sure you subscribe, leave a rating and review, all that great stuff. Most importantly, thank you guys, as always, for the support, and LEO.